Hey scholars, Professor Denham here. This is a video to provide a detailed explanation of the application paper. So the application paper assignment is already on our Canvas page. I uploaded that to our Canvas page last week, and this is a video to illustrate and illuminate all the details. So make sure you have the application paper document open in front of you and that you're following along as you're listening to this video. I recommend that you take notes as I'm talking through the assignment. I'm gonna basically my goal is to help you to do this as best as possible. So the paper is minimum 2-page, no more than 4 pages. It's a formal paper. You need to use 12-point Times New Roman font with 1-inch margins on all sides, double space. So that's the formatting stuff. Um, in terms of grading, I don't have like a detailed rubric for this in terms of how many points you lose for, if you had Arial font instead of Times New Roman font. I grade holistically, as I've explained in other videos before. As you know, you should know with my grading policy, my grading philosophy, I grade holistically. If you're not sure, review the syllabus, look at my grading video. Grades are like pancakes. I have a PowerPoint, and then of course the video that goes along with that. So what this paper is all about, it's your opportunity to apply your to apply a course concept to your own communication experience. You're gonna first choose one concept from the list below on page 2. So page 2, I give you several concepts to choose from, and you're only choosing one. So some students say like, oh, do I have to do all the concepts within one chapter? No, you don't. So just to be really extra clear, I think it's pretty clear in the paper itself, but you're only writing on one concept, only one concept. So only one, not more than one. So there's that. The guidelines for your paper, basically, if you just follow along, if you follow the Roman numerals that I have for you on page 1, where it says introduction, background, concept, application, conclusion, my recommendation to you, follow that framework, follow that format. It needs to be at least 2 pages, but no more than 4 pages. You don't need a title page. You don't need a cover page. Basically, you just need your name, and the course. I mean, that's all you really need to put on there. You don't need to put name, course, the section number, the date, the title, so on and so forth. Because oftentimes what happens is students, they put too much information for that kind of stuff, and then it ends up being like a third of a page. And so if you had a third of a page of just stuff that's not text, then if you only had 2 pages, then it's not really a 2-page paper. So I say at least 2 pages. That's if you're writing really concise. And the advice I'm giving you and the recommendations I'm giving you is for how to write like the optimal paper, how to write a really great paper. So if you do the bare minimum, doing the bare minimum is not necessarily a bad thing, but bare minimum is average, which means C. So that's how I grade holistically, right? I mean, I look at the big picture. If it's like an average paper, then it's a C. In terms of grading, you might have, let's say it's a really good paper, like you based on your writing, you clearly know what you're talking about. You clearly did the homework. You've done the reading. You've reflected on it. You provided a relevant application to something you've experienced. But there's all kinds of proofreading errors, like spelling errors, typos, grammatical errors, etc. Well, I'm not going to give you an F for that. I don't assign an F to those types of papers, but you're probably not going to get an A, right? A means excellent, right? It's at the top of the game, so to speak. So again, the way I grade, I look at the big picture, and I always remind this to students. I'm intentionally being redundant, so that way you know how I grade. I look at your paper and keep in mind. One thing I tell my students is I've been a college professor. I've been grading papers and speeches and outlines for 15 years. So at this point in my career, I've seen thousands and thousands of outlines, papers, essays, and so on and so forth. I myself have written a lot of papers and outlines and essays and so on and so forth. So I know good writing when I see it. And the thing is, writing is challenging. But writing is one of the best ways, in my opinion, it's one of the best ways to demonstrate what you know. Taking an exam sometimes is one of those things where it tests you on what you don't know, right? Like if you don't remember, if you're taking a multiple choice true false exam, if you don't remember certain things, if you're taking the exam, then you don't remember them. But writing is, you do it at your own pace, and a writing assignment allows you to demonstrate what you know. And of course, writing itself can be challenging, but it's only a 2 to 4 page paper, and you only have to have, you're not doing, outside research where you're getting like 20, 30, 40 sources for the paper with a 30 to 40 page paper. That would be quite a lot. It's only 2 to 4 pages. So the two main things are Roman numerals 3 and 4. The Roman numeral 3 is you're using your textbook as the source from where you got the information. And doing that, you're going to provide a thorough, detailed explanation of the concept. So I'm just going to use, as an example, the concept of fundamental attribution error. So I talked about this in one of the previous PowerPoints, and fundamental attribution error is on page 57. So if you're following along in the textbook, I would say turn to page 57. It's in chapter 3 on perceiving the self and others. So the authors talk about fundamental attribution error. They provide a detailed explanation of that, and then they reference sources, they reference outside sources from where they got information to help explain that concept. So keep that in mind. So Roman numeral 3, your job is to provide a detailed, thorough explanation of the concept using your own words, referencing the textbook, but also what I recommend, I'm not requiring this is not a requirement, but I highly recommend that you use an additional outside source to help explain, to help thoroughly explain that concept. So in this section, in the concept section, Roman numeral 3, you're not providing the application yet. You're not yet applying this concept to your own personal experience. You can use a variety of examples to help explain the concept, but you're not yet at the application point. The application part is when you're illustrating the way that your concept, or you're illustrating the way that a communication experience you have had illuminates the concept, exemplifies the concept. So you're not yet doing that in the concept part. You're just explaining the concept. So you're demonstrating to the reader, which is me, but you're demonstrating to the reader. And anytime you're writing something, you always have to keep in mind there's a reader. There's going to be a reader. There's someone who's going to be reading this. So you're demonstrating to the reader that you understand this concept well. So how you do that, you read fundamental attribution error, review your notes or whatever concept you choose. There's all kinds of concepts. Prejudice, self-concept, social comparison theory, affiliation, so on and so forth. So there's several concepts. I'm just using this as an example. So using the textbook and then using the notes that you took from the PowerPoint and anything I talked about, that and for this particular concept, there's a little video that talks about it. But you might need more. You might be like, okay, I only have like a paragraph or so, maybe one medium paragraph to explain this, but you need to expand it more. The concept portion should be anywhere from 3/4 of a page to maybe a page and a half, right? Depending on how you write. So you look at what the authors did. They provide an explanation of fundamental attribution error, and then they're providing references. And at the bottom of the page 57, it says, one study found that dangerous drivers involved in more accidents and risky driving had stronger negativity biases than safer drivers and probably believed other drivers caused their accidents. So what the authors are doing is they're providing a further explanation of fundamental attribution error using a specific context of people who are bad drivers or people who get in accidents a lot. And in this particular study, they put the reference Chai Koo, Sun, Zheng, and Yi, 2016. What I recommend to you is if you see that and you're like, okay, hey, that would be a good way for me to help explain my understanding of this concept of fundamental attribution error. So you see the reference. Chai Koo, Sun, Zheng, and Yi, 2016, and you want to look that up. So in the back of the textbook, so this is on page, page 57, chapter 3. You see that source and you're thinking, I want to look at that article to learn more about the article to help me explain this this concept in more detail. So you look at the back of the book. In the very back of the book, you'll see references, and then after references, you have, the index or something like that? Yeah, index. Before the index is references. So in the back of our textbook, there are references. Every time you see a source citation, a reference within the text, they provide the citation at the back of the book. So I'm looking at that reference, Chai Koo, Sun, Zheng, and Yi, 2016. And then I have the information here. It's on page R7 under references. Negativity bias and dangerous drivers, and it gives you the journals +1 and all that kind of information. So I want to find that. I want to find that article. And whatever your article is, obviously I'm just using one example. There's hundreds of examples of references. One step is to just type in, take the title of that article, type it into Google, do a Google search, and sometimes you get lucky and you find the article, you find the PDF, but usually you don't. Sometimes you get lucky. Step two, you can look at Google Scholar. So Google Scholar is scholar.google.com. Some of you have used that before, but what Google Scholar does is it gives you a more specified, narrow search, or your search results are more specified and narrow to academic and to scholarly and academic sources versus the World Wide Web of all kinds of sources. So if you find it that way, great. And if you don't, then use the library databases. So what I recommend right now is that you hit pause on this, and then you go open up a tab in your browser, open up a browser on your computer, and go to Pollock Library. So I'm going to do that with you. So if you're following along, I'm going to walk you through the process of how to find a scholarly journal article using the Cal State Fullerton databases. So you're on the main page. I can't share my screen with you with this application of how I'm recording this video, but if you're on the main page of Cal State Fullerton, what you do, go to Quick Links. You left click on the thing that says Quick Links, left click there. And you left click on Quick Links. You scroll down to Pollock Library, click on Pollock Library. And then once you get to the Pollock Library website, homepage, click on the thing that says databases. On my end, it's on the top left. If you're using a mobile device, it might look different. So I recommend using a laptop or desktop as you're doing this. So left click on databases, and then they'll say A through Z databases. It says 293 databases found, and they're listed alphabetically. I recommend clicking on that second one down there. It's alphabetically. The second one down is Academic Search Premier. Left click on that. Now, if you're accessing this from home, if you're not on campus, you'll probably have to log into the library, just like you log into a portal. But if you're on campus, then it probably takes you right to the thing that says EBSCO and now you're in a specific type of database. So now you want to click on the thing that says Choose Databases. So if you look at the top, kind of towards the left in the middle, right next to the thing that says Academic Search Premier, you'll see a hyperlink that says Choose Databases. It's in blue. If you left click on Choose Databases, now you're taken to a list of all these subject-specific databases. And I just want to acknowledge the fact that this is not exactly the most fun thing to talk about or to learn about, but it's a really good way to get good information. Garbage in, garbage out. So when you're taking the time to strategically set up a search for information. Obviously, in this case, we already know what we're looking for. But if you're just doing, let's say, research on a topic, whether it's in this class or another class you have, and you have to do a literature review on some sort of topic, I recommend setting up a very strategic search. Might not be the most fun thing to do, but once you do that, then you get really good articles, and it makes your job a lot easier as a student to write. If your teacher says, "Hey, write a literature review on this topic," well, you can do a Google search, and you can just go on just the World Wide Web, and you might find some good information, but chances are you're not going to find great information. Chances are when you do it this way, when you have a strategic search using the library databases, which you have access to as a student, then you're going to get really good information, and it makes your job a lot easier as a student. So then once you get here, you have all kinds of subject-specific databases. If you take your cursor and you hover over these little text boxes here, on the right of each one, it says AgeLine, America, Anthropology Plus, so on and so forth. If you hover over the text box for just a second, then a description summary of that subject-specific database will come up. And basically, this is how you set up a strategic search. If your background, if your topic has to do with sports or medicine or nursing or education, look through all the different subject-specific databases, and then choose the ones that seem to be the most relevant for your topic. In this case, I'll click on Communication and Mass Media Complete, or it says Communication Source. It's just all things related to communication. this topic of negativity bias. It's a communication-based topic, so I do that. I click OK. And sometimes you click on a few databases and you don't get the results you want, so you click on different databases, but it's kind of more of an art than a science. And then I'll type in that title where it says negativity bias and dangerous drivers. I recommend that you do this along with me so that way you actually see what happens. Negativity, bias, dangerous drivers. And let's see what happens. It's coming up. It will come up. My computer's slow. My computer's been extra slow lately. I'm not really sure why, but once you see that, I'm not gonna like spend too much time on this particular article because not all of you are gonna choose this topic. But once you get the article, it says negativity bias and dangerous drivers. You'll see the authors of Chai Koo, Sun, Zhang, and Yi, 2016. You might see some really long article, right? It might be like a 15, 16, 20 page article. Here it is right here. This one has PDF full text, so you click on the PDF full text. And then once that opens up, then you can read the abstract. The abstract is a summary of the whole article. And then for the purposes of this paper, you don't necessarily need to read the entire article, right? That would take you a really long time to read a 15-page scholarly academic article. But what you should do, read through the abstract and read through the different parts of the article that are relevant to your topic, that are relevant for this paper. So you're not necessarily going to find, you might not find the term fundamental attribution error in this source. You might not find the term affiliation. You might not find the actual term that you're writing about. But the whole point of this is you're finding an outside source outside of this textbook that the authors are already referencing. The authors already looked at these sources to help them write about this topic. And now what you're doing is the same kind of thing, but you're only going to do one. You can do more than one if you want, but all you need is one. That would be completely sufficient. So you find that one outside source, negativity bias and dangerous drivers, and there's the abstract introduction. Don't worry about things like the methods or the results. I mean, the results are important. You can kind of skim through the results. But in these types of scholarly academic journal articles, what you're most interested in, what you should be most interested in, would be like the discussion, conclusion, directions for future research. That's when the authors are saying, hey, here's what we found, and here's what it means, and here's what we think we should do about it. Here's what we're going to continue to do in the future. But nevertheless, skim through the article. I would say spend anywhere from maybe 20 minutes to 30 minutes tops reading through the article. Enough that you can extrapolate information from the article that you can then include into your paper. So that was a lot, right? That was really detailed what I just told you. But now you know how to do research if you've never done it before. And what I described to you is the way that I did research throughout my entire master's program and throughout my entire PhD program. And it worked pretty well for me, so take from it what you will. But that is a optimal way to provide a concise overview and detailed explanation of the concept that you're choosing for this paper. That's the concept portion. That's more like a little more challenging in a way because you have to read through stuff. And now you have the application portion. The application portion holds the greatest importance, but in some ways it's easier in ways because now you're just writing about your own personal experience. You don't have to pull from outside research anymore. You're obviously going to be explaining how your experience exemplifies the different components and different aspects of the concept that you just wrote about. And the communication experience that you're going to write about, it can be something that's ongoing, something where it's something that's happening at work or that happened at work. So it could be something that happened in the past, something that's ongoing, something that an interaction that you had with a family member, a friend, a coworker, a boss, a coach, a professor, a classmate. It could be really anything, but it's a personal communication experience that is relevant to this topic where you're basically articulating and explaining how your experience exemplifies the concept. And in this particular part of the paper, it's not like you're either right or wrong. It's not like I'm going to read your paper and be like, no, that's wrong. That's not a correct application. You're explaining to me, to the reader, you're explaining how you believe your experience exemplifies this concept, and basically the degree to which you write about it thoroughly and accurately, where you're integrating the different components of the concept, you're integrating let's say it's fundamental attribution error, you're integrating that into your personal experience. That's what I'm looking for. Um, and I give you things like explain how the concept illustrates your experience, give specific and detailed examples. Why was it useful to use this particular? Why was it useful to use this particular concept to illustrate your experience? And then you have the conclusion. Provide a summary of what happened. Of course, I didn't talk about the introduction and background. Sometimes it's easier to write the introduction and background last. It might sound like backwards way of thinking, but in many ways, that's how I wrote as a grad student. Oftentimes, I write my introduction once I'm finished with my paper, because for me, my logic was I don't know how to like write an introduction to a paper that I haven't yet written. I found it to be much easier to write an introduction after I'm done with the paper, because then I look at the paper and I'm like kind of stepping back and I'm like, okay, that's what I wrote. Now I have a better idea of how to provide an introduction. So the introduction conclusion are kind of similar in a way, but the introduction is providing a preview of what the reader can expect. And you have a background. The background is just a concise description of the context of what was going on. This is something that took place at my work or on the sports field or with my coach and so on and so forth. And the conclusion is a summary of what happened. So that's that. I know that was a lot, very detailed and thorough, but this is an online asynchronous class, so I want to give you as much information as I can so that way you're equipped with how to do this. Do it well. I just give you like a real brief example on page 2 of a format. Like I put the title, like a person's name, George Lucas, HCOM100, communicating with the dark side, like the name and a title of the paper. I'm not too concerned about what you title your paper. You don't have to have a title of the paper, but I just want to make sure that you put your name on there and then start writing. Make sure the alignment is aligned left and not justified. When it's justified, it's like the same on both sides, and it makes it harder to read. 12-point times Roman font with 1-inch margins. That's that. I also have a sample paper from a former student it's been on our Canvas page for us, so some of you have already seen it. It's a sample paper on a student sample paper on self-monitoring. Now that's not a sample paper from this assignment. That's a sample paper that I had from an upper level class, an upper division class from a few years ago, a 300 level class on nonverbal communication. And this particular student that I got the paper from, she was quite an overachiever. I think the requirement was like a 5 to 6 page paper, and she wrote like a 10-page paper. But nevertheless, it's a great example of a great paper that's relevant and related to this assignment, where she provides a detailed explanation of a concept, self-monitoring, and then she provides a detailed application of that concept to I think she provides a few different applications. I think some personal applications and applications to film or TV shows or something like that. But I definitely recommend that you read through that just so you kind of have an idea of what a good college paper looks like. And then I have expectations for your paper. Like I said, at least 2, but no more than 4 pages. That's not including the reference page. So it's 2 to 4 pages of text, 2 to 4 pages of you writing, not the references page. So make sure that you include the references page. The references page is going to include our textbook and then any outside sources. So in many cases, it'll just be 2 sources, the textbook and then an article or a book chapter or a book or website or something like that. Make sure you proofread. Proofreading is one of those things that can make a massive difference between an A and a B or a B and a C and so on and so forth. I highly recommend that you start writing in outline format, like have a skeleton outline and use the format that I have on page 1. If you're not sure what a skeleton outline is, look it up online. But the way that you might start off your paper, you open up a blank document, you just type in Roman numeral 1, introduction, space. Roman numeral 2, background, space. Roman numeral 3, concept. You hit enter, and then big A, explain the concept of blank. Section B, use extra sources to explain the concept, so on and so forth. Part 4, application. Part 5, conclusion. So that's a way of setting up a skeleton outline. And then as you're working through this document, as you're working through the assignment, you're reading through your textbook, you're looking at your notes, you're looking at the outside source. Oftentimes when we're writing, we don't always write linearly. Now, when you're turning in the finished product, it's linear, right? You have it's 3 pages, pages 1 through 3. It starts on page 1, ends on page 3, and you're following this format of introduction, background, concept, application, conclusion. But when you're actually writing it, sometimes you might write in the concept, and then you have an idea. Ooh, I have a good idea for my application. Then you skip ahead to your application, and then you go back to the concept, and then you have an idea for a conclusion. And then you might be thinking, oh, I have a good idea for an attention getter, or how to introduce this concept. So the way that I would write, I would kind of write all over the place. I wouldn't write linearly. I would write like literally all over the place. But my finished product was a linear paper. That's why I recommend starting with an outline. And that way, when you have an outline format, it's a lot easier to write that way. And then once you're finished with your outline, now you're taking the outline and then copying and pasting the outline into essay format and then proofreading and all that kind of stuff. So that's that. One of the first things that you can do that I recommend that you do is just you can either start step 1, choose your concept, or step 1, choose your communication experience. But I think it'd be easier for you to first look through all the different concepts that are available from chapters 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8. I haven't yet gotten to chapter 8, or chapter 8 is for this week. What is it? Week, where are we? Week 5, we're in week 5, so I haven't yet posted anything for chapter 8, but nevertheless, you have the PowerPoints and lecture videos for chapters 1, 3, 6, 4, and 5. And even for whether or not you've read about this concept, just read through all the different concepts. And if something stands out to you, look it up. You might spend an hour or so just looking through the concepts, kind of like cherry picking the concepts, looking them in the text, looking them up in the textbook, referencing your notes, referencing the PowerPoint lecture, any notes that you took from my lecture videos and or PowerPoint lectures. And then just figure out like which concept do you want to write about? Which concept resonates with you? Which concept makes you think like, ooh, I think of this concept makes me think of these experiences that I've had in sports or in school or at work or with friends or so on and so forth. So that might be the first step. And then once you get that done, maybe you take a break, right? I recommend writing in stages. Try not to do all this all in one sitting. This is due Sunday night, September 26th. So try to do this in chunks and stages. Break it up. Step 1, choose your concept and start writing about the concept. Spend maybe like an hour, 2 hours doing that. And maybe take a break. And then come back to it another time, another day. And little by little, and from my experience, one of the best ways to write is you write in chunks. Write in chunks and stages versus all at once. And when you're doing the outline that way, when you start with an outline, just as a reminder, you're not turning in an outline. You're only turning in your finished product, your finished essay. That's 2 to 4 pages. But the reason I recommend writing an outline is because almost all good writing starts with an outline. Almost everything that you read in your textbooks, scholarly books, academic books, non-academic books, almost always the writer, even the best writers, they still start with an outline because that's like one of the cardinal rules. And it's like good writing starts with an outline. Very few people can just open up a computer screen, open up like a word processor document, Microsoft Word, and just start writing in it. And it's like amazing and wonderful, right? Not many people can do that well. But that's beside the point. I'm giving you information and guidance on how to write a really good paper. So that's the first step. What I recommend is the concept, and then go back to it. And then basically, at the end of the day, you need to finish this assignment and submit it and so on and so forth. I wish you all the best. Try to have fun with this as far as, as much fun as you can have with homework and as much fun as you can have with like college level work. But try to, if not the word fun, try to make this useful. Write about something that you think is important, useful to you, and write the application portion should be something that is a significant component of your life. It doesn't have to be, but I recommend choosing something that's meaningful to you, that you care about, and that in the process of you writing about this, it's actually informing you, and you have like, you're gaining insight in your own particular life. Maybe you're gaining closure on something that happened in the past, like something happened in the past and you never had closure on it. But now this paper is an opportunity for you to like write about it, and it's like cathartic and it feels good to write about, and you're gaining knowledge and you're gaining insight and you have closure and it's an assignment and it's worth points and all that kind of good stuff. Anyways, I hope you're all doing well. If you have specific questions about this, you can reach out to me and let me know. But do well, write well, and take care. Bye.